I took the last bus home one night. It was late, raining lightly, and the bus was almost empty. There were only 3 other people on it when I got on. I remember thinking I was lucky I didn't have to walk home from the station. I was wrong. I had stayed late at work that night. By the time I left the building, it was a little after 11. The bus stop was only a few minutes away, and when I got there, I could already see the bus coming down the street. I got on, tapped my card, and sat near the middle of the bus. There was an older man sitting near the front. A woman was sitting several rows behind me, and there was a guy sitting all the way in the back. He was wearing a dark jacket with a hood pulled up. I didn't really pay attention to him. I put my headphones in, opened my phone, and watched the city pass outside the window. About 10 minutes later, the older man got off. A few minutes after that, the woman got off too. I barely noticed. I was still looking at my phone. Then I looked up. The bus was almost completely empty. Just me, the driver, and the guy in the back. I remember feeling slightly uncomfortable. Not scared, just aware of him. I moved my headphones out of my ears and checked the route on my phone. I had about 15 minutes left before my stop. A few minutes later, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around. The guy was walking toward the middle of the bus. He stopped several seats behind me and sat down. I looked back at my phone. A minute later, I heard footsteps again. This time, he sat in the seat directly across the aisle from me. I remember thinking, why is he moving closer? There were dozens of empty seats. He didn't say anything. He just sat there looking down. I tried not to make it obvious that I was uncomfortable. I checked the next stop. It wasn't mine. Then I noticed something. He wasn't looking at his phone. He wasn't looking out the window. He was looking at me. I caught him staring through the reflection in the window. The second I looked directly at him, he looked away. I looked toward the front of the bus. The driver hadn't noticed anything. Or if he had, he gave no sign of it. That's when I stopped trying to convince myself it was just a coincidence. I decided to get off at the next stop instead of waiting for mine. I could walk the rest of the way. When the bus stopped, I stood up. So, did he? There was no hesitation. It was as if he'd already decided he was getting off wherever I did. That's when I knew something was wrong. I walked toward the front doors. He followed. I stepped off the bus. He stepped off too. The bus pulled away, leaving the two of us standing on a nearly empty street. I didn't look at him. I just started walking. My apartment was still about 15 minutes away. I could hear footsteps behind me. I walked faster. The footsteps got faster too. I crossed the street. He crossed the street. I turned down another block. He turned too. At that point, I stopped pretending it was a coincidence. I pulled out my phone and pretended to make a call. "Hey, I'm almost home," I said loudly. There was nobody on the other end. I just wanted him to think someone was waiting for me. He stopped walking. For a second, I thought it had worked. Then he started walking again. I kept going. My hands were shaking. I didn't want to run because I was afraid that would make things worse. Then I saw a small 24-hour laundromat across the street. There were lights on inside. I thought about going in, but before I could cross the street, I heard him say my name, Kara. I froze. I had never told him my name. I turned around. He was standing about 20 feet away. He wasn't running. He wasn't even trying to hide anymore. He just stood there. "How do you know my name?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he started walking toward me. I ran. I sprinted across the street and pushed through the laundromat doors. There were 2 people inside, but I didn't stop to explain anything. I ran straight to the bathroom at the back. I locked the door and stood there trying to catch my breath. For the next few minutes, I heard nothing. Then I heard the laundromat door open. I could hear footsteps, slow footsteps. They stopped outside the bathroom. I covered my mouth with my hand. Someone tried the handle. Once. Then again. I thought I was trapped. Then I heard one of the customers say something from the other side of the room. The footsteps moved away. I waited. A minute passed. Then another. The laundromat had gone completely quiet. Finally, I looked under the bathroom door. The shoes were still there, perfectly still. Then, they slowly turned and walked away. I waited another few minutes before I unlocked the door. One of the plastic chairs near the entrance had been knocked onto its side. I couldn't remember if it had been like that before. The front door was standing open. Rain was blowing inside. The laundromat was empty. The two customers were gone. I ran outside. I didn't go home. I walked several blocks in the opposite direction, ducked behind a row of buildings, and waited there until I was sure nobody was following me. Eventually, I called a friend and asked her to come get me. I never told her the whole story over the phone. I just told her I needed somewhere to stay that night. She picked me up about 20 minutes later. I didn't see the man again. I still don't know how he knew my name. I tried to convince myself there had to be a simple explanation. Maybe he'd overheard someone at work. Maybe someone had called out to me before I got on the bus. But no matter how many explanations I came up with, none of them ever felt right. Looking back, I don't think getting off the bus early is what saved me. I think it was the moment I realized something was wrong and trusted that feeling before it was too late. I never saw that man again. At least, not that I'm aware of. But even now, whenever I hear footsteps behind me late at night, I always look twice, because sometimes the person following you doesn't need to say a word. They already know exactly who you are.